Hello, and welcome to Oddspedia Bundesliga match day 15th. We had an amazing match day 14th. The previous weekend, Ronan, we saw Bayern Munich getting thrashed. We saw an exciting Stuttgart Leverkusen as well, with Leverkusen again drawing. Hello, Ronan. How are you?
Hello, Edu. Yeah, it was a one for the record books, and I suppose the last time that Bayern Munich lost 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt, they went on to win the treble. So I don't think that's going to happen this year because obviously they're out of the cup. But after we saw Manchester United dumped out with the Champions League last night, maybe they're on for a Champions League and Bundesliga double this season. So maybe the history will play its cards right again for Bayern Munich after that 5-1 defeat.
Let's see. They have to bounce back, and they have a tough game against Stuttgart. Is the last game in this weekend and the best one. So let's not waste any time. Let's analyze all the games. Remember, as well, we want to know your opinion. So ask any question as well to Ronan Murphy and like the video. Subscribe. Already 25,000 subscribers. And now let's go on with the show. We have already some comments from Walimbwa from Kamrul. You guys know that we have a special offer with 1xBet, welcome bonus of 130%. So use our promo code. You have the link in the description if you want to get it. Ronan, first game on Friday, Gladbach, Werder Bremen. The odds for Gladbach are not bad, actually. Gladbach to win is around 2.0 in the middle of the table, lost against Union Berlin. But at home is a completely different story. They are quite strong. They won the last 3 home games, whereas Werder Bremen, they are so bad away from home. Only 1 point, 1 draw, and 5 defeats. So all the roads lead to Gladbach to win.
Yeah, I think they do. I think those odds look very favourable. When I had a look last night, they were 1.95. Now they're up to 1.99. So maybe if you wait a little longer till the weekend, you might get a nice round 2 to bet on Gladbach to win. But yeah, I think Bremen, obviously they beat Augsburg last week and it was a great result for them. Yes, Turup had been kind of doing so well with Augsburg, but I'm not sure necessarily Bremen deserved to be as comfortable winners on the score sheet as it was in the end. They had less possession, and the second goal came as Augsburg were trying to make a double substitution, and they probably should have been allowed to make the substitution before the free kick was taken. And I think Augsburg were kind of rightly annoyed that it didn't happen, and Bremen went on then to score immediately after and win the game 2-0, and it looked more comfortable perhaps than it was. And I think the opposite can be said a lot of times of Gladbach this season. They've been playing well but not getting the performances. So I think it was one of those games last week where they were tired against Union Berlin after the extra time win in the cup. I think they kind of look like a team that they're ready for the winter break to come, and maybe they're in need of a break. But I think they should be confident of getting something from this game because they're obviously home. They don't have to travel. They didn't have a midweek fixture, so they don't have that kind of fatigue to play with this weekend. So they should be more confident getting something. The most common result in this fixture is amazingly a 4-1 win. Is the home win is the most common result in this fixture. So it's obviously one that throws up a lot of different results over time, because I don't think there's been 10 4-1s, and that's why we have a most common 4-1. So it's one of these ones where there usually tends to be lots of goals. Last season it was 5-1 to Bremen and 2-2 then when Gladbach were in the home game. So there was lots of goals in the last season. Both teams to score yes here is 1.49, over 3.25 goals is 2.02. So there could be good value in those ones if you're expecting a high scoring match. And I think we should expect a high scoring match here for a Friday evening fixture after the Champions League weekend, which we haven't been given recently. As you well recall, we've been given some absolute stinkers of Friday evening games. This one could be a good one. But like you said at the start, those odds for Gladbach, they just look too good to turn down, I think.
Okay, you've convinced me. Punter is going for the unders. He says that perhaps we are close to the winter break. It's getting very cold in Germany, so perhaps we don't see many goals in this kind of games. Well, don't be a downer, Punter, because Ronan thinks there could be goals in this Gladbach Werder Bremen. On Saturday, this is a good one, first one. Augsburg Dortmund, because you were talking about not being tired for Gladbach not having to play in Europe. For Dortmund, is the opposite. They have a really big game on Wednesday. So today, actually, when we are doing this video against PSG, so we don't know what they are going to do. And they have a tough trip to Augsburg. Usually, Augsburg, they do pretty good when they are playing at home, whereas Dortmund only one victory in the last 6 Bundesliga games out of the Champions League spots. Perhaps their poor form in Germany is being going under the radar because they are doing so good in the Champions League against tough opposition.
Yeah, I think perhaps from outsiders looking in, maybe it is. But I think I've spoken to Borussia Dortmund fans, and I hear a lot from Borussia Dortmund fans that they are not pleased about how they're playing at the moment. They think they could be playing a lot better, obviously, and the head coach, he's done so well in the Champions League. It would be crazy to consider him under pressure, but I think he is under pressure, especially from the fans. They expect more from this bunch of teams, and we kind of expect more on a weekly basis from these players. And we probably expected them to do something against RB Leipzig last week, but they weren't able to. Mats Hummels getting sent off early on was obviously a big setback for them, and he came out after the match and he said he took full responsibility for it. Of course, he is going to do that. He is a leader for them, but he'll be missing this match and he'll be a loss to them. And after the 3-2 defeat to Leipzig, 𝐜𝐿𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜𝐿 came out and he said, we've proven how good we are. We'll continue to prove it by improving step by step. Successful results will follow again soon. So I think he's hoping that this match can be a successful one for them, because they need to be taking points in matches like this. A game against Augsburg is a game that they need to be winning if they're to get into the top 4 this season. I think they're probably out of the title race at this stage. It's a Leverkusen Bayern Munich one, but with some of the other teams performing so well around them, Stuttgart, RB Leipzig, Borussia Dortmund need to be winning matches like that if they're to be in the Champions League next season. You would probably think it unthinkable they would look like they could win the Bundesliga with 20 minutes left last season, and this season they're headed to maybe for a 5th position finish. So that's how things have changed there. So 𝐜𝐿𝐧𝐧𝐽, if he doesn't produce results in games like this, he could be out of a job. So being interesting to see how he does set up in it, because like I said to Leo last week, the 4-3-2-1 approach that he had been taking against Leverkusen and now against Leipzig, it's really defensive. It's not what Borussia Dortmund fans want to be seeing. And we saw a 3-4-3 in the cup, and that seemed to be more attacking. So whether he goes for the defensive or the attacking will sway the fans a bit more. At least if they're going to try and take the game to opposition, they can't complain the same way. But if they're set up defensively and still can't produce results, it's not going to be pretty. And I think Dortmund should win this one. History kind of shows it. Last season they won both matches against Augsburg. They won 4-3 in Dortmund, and they actually won 3-0 away in Augsburg. So they should be hopeful of it. And this is another one where, for me, the odds of around 2, they just look too good to turn down, because I think Borussia Dortmund should be a better team here, and they should be out to prove a point.
Well, we have Bonjovu telling us Dortmund to win or draw, and both teams to score. Dortmund to win is great, we have to say. Around 2, you don't have these odds for Dortmund to win against a relegation team in the league, but Dortmund form is not very positive. And talking about relegation, a clash between Mainz and Heidenheim. Mainz is still in relegation spots, but in a positive trend. Only one defeat in the last 6 games. Draw in Cologne was the last game. And Heidenheim, also, they got a very positive victory against Darmstadt in the clash between newly promoted teams. They are 4 points away from the play-out spots. Surprisingly low odds, I would say, for Mainz to win. The bookies trust so much Mainz.
Yeah, it does seem a surprise, and especially for a team that can't score goals, because that point they picked up against Cologne last week, it was another 0-0 for Mainz, and that has taken them to a whopping 0.9 average goals per game scored. So they just don't score goals. This is not a team that score goals. If they're getting results, it's because it's a 0-0 draw or maybe a 1-0 win or something like that. So it's not a team that has been prolific in front of goal. Whereas Heidenheim last week, like you said, in that newly promoted game, they played out a 5-goal thriller. They've taken their own kind of goals scored average to 1.5 goals per game. So they do seem to be able to find the score sheet a lot more. They were deserved winners in that game. There was an interesting stat. Jan-Niklas Best, he had 3 assists in the game. They all came from set pieces. 2 of them were corners to the centre back. It was one of these games where Heidenheim looked like a team that were well coached, and Mainz, I think, even though Jan Sievert, since he came in and kind of took over as caretaker coach, he's not performed terribly, but I think he is on borrowed time, and I would expect him to appoint someone different over the winter break when they get time to look at the candidates that are out there. So this could be one of his last games here. The Heidenheim game last week, they had a lot of corners in that one. They had 11 corners in it. So this one could be one looking at the corner market, because I don't think there are going to be a lot of goals, but perhaps there could be a lot of corners. And over 9.5 corners here is 2. But like you said, the odds on Heidenheim, they look very, very long compared to Mainz. I'm not sure why the bookies favoured them so heavily. So I'm looking here as my tip for Heidenheim, Asian handicap plus 3/4 plus 0.75 at 2.01.
Interesting to Asian handicap Heidenheim, so they don't lose heavily, or even if they get a draw, you get the full stake. Next game is Darmstadt Wolfsburg. Darmstadt, the loser of this relegation clash with Heidenheim, but they also lost to Cologne. It looks like they are losing a little bit the plot lately. No victory since the beginning of October. And they are playing against Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg, they are so bad away from home. 7 consecutive defeats away from home. They are in a really bad form also. They lost to Freiburg out of the cup, lost to Bochum. So if they want to bounce back, this is a good stadium to do it.
You would think so. And Darmstadt, like you said, 6 games without a win. They have this game and then Hoffenheim to end the year. So I think they're going to be 8 games without a win by the time the year ends. They don't have favourable fixtures coming up, and only one Darmstadt attacker has actually scored a goal this season, Oscar Wilhelmsen, their top scorer. We mentioned last week's show, their giant top scorer got injured for the rest of the year. Their top scorer actually is the right wing back, Tim Skark. So it's not like they're getting a lot of goals coming from their attackers. They're kind of depending on someone else to produce the magic, and maybe that's why their average goals this season 1.2. Wolfsburg is marginally better on 1.3, and that goes back to what we usually talk about with Wolfsburg, is the fact that 𝐿𝐭𝐿𝐴, he still can't settle on a starting 11. He can't settle on tactics. He needs something positive from this game, because maybe he's going to be out of a job too over the winter break. I wouldn't be surprised. They have Bayern Munich obviously before the break, so 0 points is coming their way from that one. So they need to get something here really. And this one, I think it's going to be another low scoring affair. I'm not very confident in this one being a thriller either. Wolfsburg, the odds on them to win are 2.3, but the Asian handicap 0, 1.63 doesn't look too bad. But if you look at both teams so far this season, both teams to score, doesn't seem like something has happened a lot. Only 53% of Wolfsburg's games so far, both teams to score. 67% of Darmstadt. So both teams to score, no, it's 2.33. That's my tip for this one. But if you really want to go out on a limb, correct score 0-0, 16. This could be one of those.
One of the games to avoid watching. Wolfsburg only 18 goals scored. Darmstadt 17. Considering the average of goals scored in the Bundesliga, this is a low tally. Of course, far away from the 10 scored from Cologne, but still low scoring game. This one. Next one is another game for the relegation battle. Bochum Union Berlin, but Bochum, they are doing the things better, let's say. They lost to Hoffenheim, is true, but beat Wolfsburg is a tough team to beat when they are playing at home. And it's a good test also for Union Berlin. They are out of the relegation spots because they were able to beat Gladbach in the last game. In the Champions League, we know that they lost to Real Madrid, but they are so poor away from home after this first victory for 𝐬𝐭𝐴 at home. Ronan, is very important also to grab points away from home, especially against a direct rival like Bochum.
Yeah, it is, and I think they showed a lot of spirit and a bit of fight in that game against Real Madrid, because if they had won, they could have actually continued playing in Europe. They could have went through to Europa League. So it was one of these ones where there was actually something on the line, and Real Madrid ended up being only for the third time in history. I think they won all 6 Champions League games. So it was a historic Real Madrid team they were up against. So yeah, they showed enough there that they aren't pushovers that we maybe thought 2 months ago that anyone would beat them and anyone would beat them easily. So I think that they showed signs of turning a corner under the new coach, and obviously that big win over Gladbach hugely helped. I know I said it earlier that Gladbach were tired coming into it, and perhaps that could play into Bochum's hands here. Union Berlin could be tired, obviously, after traveling back from Madrid, but I think this is the kind of game that that Union Berlin need to be able to pick up points from and show that they're not the same team that went months without a win, and a win here could be huge for their survival chances. They have Cologne coming up next before the break. That's another match they'll be looking to take points from. This one, I'm not expecting, like our friend Punter said earlier, the total goals under could be ones to go for in matches here, because I'm not expecting another high scoring game here. Average goals here in this one is 1.1 versus 1.2, so it's not going to be another thriller. Total goals under 2.5 for this one is 1.86. That could be worth looking at, but I think Union Berlin to win could just be enough here, because Bochum haven't looked great recently. I know Union Berlin haven't looked great recently either, but I think they've turned the corner and they'll have a point to prove before the winter break comes.
All right, only one defeat for Bochum playing at home, 1 victory, 4 draws, and 1 defeat. Just in case perhaps you want to be a little bit more cautious and going for Asian handicap 0, for instance, for draw no bet for Union Berlin, and if there is a draw, very likely you get your money back. Renwar was telling us that Union Berlin was travel for Real Madrid, indeed, in the Champions League, both at the Bernabeu and in the Olympia Stadium of Berlin. Next one, last game we have on Saturday is Leipzig Hoffenheim. Important game. We have Leipzig in the Champions League spots. 4th, they grabbed a huge victory against Dortmund. They also beat Heidenheim before this. They've also won the last 3 home games, but Hoffenheim, they are doing a great season. They are 6th in the standings, and we know how dangerous they could be when they are playing away from home. They are the 3rd best team away from home. Perhaps, Ronan, this is because when they play at home, it looks like they are playing away as well, no? Because I was seeing some images of the stadium completely empty, and this is kind of odd for the Bundesliga.
Yeah, it is. I think that probably comes with the background of the club from they play in Sinsheim, which isn't really a big metropolis like we're used to maybe in the North Rhine-Westphalia, when you have all these clubs close together and there's tens of thousands of fans stacked in together. But Hoffenheim is kind of between Frankfurt and Stuttgart, and the kind of Sinsheim region. There's not a lot in it. There's not a lot of people live there. There's there's an aerospace museum where you can get on the Russian version of the Concorde they have there if you want to go and visit. Yeah, the Concorda or something. Yeah. Russia's equivalent to the Concorde, but there's not a lot else, so it's not really surprising that there's not a lot of people in the stadium. And the Hoffenheim, I think they're in the Bundesliga because of financial backing that kind of got around the 50+1 rule. So that's why their owner, or the former owner now, is hated. So they are one of these teams that are never going to fill the stadium, and it's just they're kind of a novelty team. So yeah, I suppose that's why every game seems like an away game to them. And they actually got their second home win of the season last week. It was a fine win over Bochum, winning 3-1. But I don't think their away form is really going to be improved in this one against Leipzig. Wout Weghorst went off injured in that win, and he'll probably be absent in this one as well. So he will be a loss for them. He had been on a good run. He's scored 4 in his previous 5 games for them, and he even got an assist in the Bochum game before he went off injured. So he will be a loss to their attack, and it'll make it harder against a team like RB Leipzig, who are on form at the moment, and they'll be full of confidence heading into this one after beating Borussia Dortmund. They played out that thriller. They scored lots of goals, and they're taking their average goals per game to 2.4. Hoffenheim's is 2, so this could be a high-scoring match. Both teams to score yes in Hoffenheim's games is 88% of the time so far this season, 67% of the times for RB Leipzig. Both teams to score yes here is 1.55, but I'm expecting lots of goals, so that's why for this one I'm going for total goals over 3.5 at 1.99.
Perhaps we see again Openda in the score sheet. 10 goals scored this season for Louis Openda. Next game, already on Sunday, we have 3 games. Freiburg, Cologne. Freiburg involved in European games. Important one, actually, against West Ham. And going back to the Freiburg basics, no, Ronan? Getting clean sheets, defense better, because this season they were conceding a lot of goals at the beginning of the season, but they won 2-0 the last 2 games against Wolfsburg and Mainz. Cologne is one of these teams that they cannot score, as well as I previously mentioned, but they are improving. 1 defeat in the last 5 games, and was only the 1-0 defeat against Bayern Munich. Only 3 goals conceded in the last 5 games. All these stats lead to a low-scoring game.
They do, yeah, they do, and I think even in the result that Freiburg got against Wolfsburg last week, the 1-0 win, their XG was 0.51, and Cologne, they were at home against Mainz last week, and their XG was 0.25, so they were even worse in front of goal. So these are 2 teams that don't create a lot of chances. The most common result with Freiburg at home is, guess what? 0-0. It seems to be one of these ones, yeah. So both games last season actually were Freiburg wins, and they were both wins where they didn't concede. They won 2-0 at home, 1-0 away. So history tells us this is going to be a low-scoring affair. So both teams to score no is 2.2. And the correct score, 1-0, is 7.75. But I'm going to hedge my bet slightly and not go the whole way and bet that 7.75. I'm going to go Freiburg to win 2-0, 3.3, because it seems like a 1-0 result is written all over this one.
Okay, then let's wait a couple of hours to see more goals. I guess we expect more goals in the Bay Arena. Leverkusen, Frankfurt after scoring 5 against Bayern Munich. Even if they are having a great season, then they surprised us, no? With this 5-1. They were coming actually from a bad feeling with the KO in the cup, 4 consecutive defeats, but then they faced Bayern Munich and they scored 5. And let's see if Leverkusen bounce back after the draws against Stuttgart and Dortmund. They have 3 home games to finish the year in an up, and at least getting this or staying with the same difference with Bayern Munich. How do you see this one?
Yeah, it's the perfect way to end the year for Leverkusen. Really, they have Bochum in the last game before the winter break, so that is a really favourable home fixture, and they won't have to do travelling. Obviously, they have the Thursday evening game in the Conference League, but it's not going to be a huge problem for them. They're already through, so they can rest players, rotate players, so they should be able to field a good enough squad, a good enough team against Frankfurt. They will be looking to win this one and obviously keep that gap against Bayern, like you said. So I think the winter break is coming at the right time for Bayer Leverkusen, but they should be confident of winning all the matches from here to winter. It's one that should be lots of goals, unlike the previous match I was talking about. Frankfurt, obviously, we saw how good they were in front of goal and how sharp they were on the counter attack. There was defensive mistakes from all of Bayern Munich's defenders, kind of leading to the goals, and they they looked a much better team than we've seen at times through the season after the cup defeat and before the Bayern Munich match. Top Muller had come out and he was very kind of passionate and fiery in the press conference, and he was demanding a kind of a bounce back from the players who had lost to Saarbrücken, and they did. They showed that they actually have fire in their bellies, and they were able to go and attack Bayern Munich, and they didn't. It seemed like after they conceded before halftime, it could be a match where their heads would drop, but they came out after in the second half and they scored again, and from that then on it was an easy game for Eintracht Frankfurt. But I'm not sure it'll be just as easy for this one against Bayer Leverkusen. Their 4-3-3 formation that they set up won't be as effective against Leverkusen's 3-4-3. I think it's going to be a trickier for Eintracht Frankfurt to create those counter-attacking chances like they had to 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐬𝐿 and 𝐾NAUF against Bayern Munich. They won't be able to do the same. Obviously, Bayer Leverkusen's defenders or wing backs will be far up the pitch, so they won't have to worry about them, but they will have 3 centre backs to deal with. So it's going to be a tougher one, I think, here for Frankfurt. But Leverkusen, they like scoring goals themselves. They sometimes can leave themselves exposed. Both teams to score yes here is 1.73, but I think Bayer Leverkusen, after the couple of disappointing draws in the league, I think they'll be trying to bounce back with a big win here, and that could lead to a lot of goals in this one. So I'm going over 3.25 goals in this.
All right, over 2 odds. If we go for over 3.5, 3.25 goals in this game, Martin is going for Leverkusen to win. This is 1.5. Is good enough actually for an ACCA if you trust Xabi Alonso's men. And the last game is a very good one. Bayern Munich, Stuttgart. What a season Stuttgart is doing. Third in the standings, drawing against Leverkusen. They had a lot of chances, especially in the first half, and they are ending the season in a high with beating Dortmund twice, for instance, beating Frankfurt away, and they want to play Champions League next season. Let's see if they are competitive also against Bayern Munich, a team, Ronan, that you could surprise them once, but it's very unlikely to surprise them twice. And usually you pay the wrath after a really heavy defeat, like the one they suffered against Frankfurt. And for instance, Tuchel didn't rotate at all in Old Trafford. So I'm sure they will want to smash Stuttgart and have a good feeling in this game.
Yeah, I think they will be out to prove a point in the Bundesliga, because obviously they had already qualified in the Champions League, so they didn't need to win. It wasn't a match they needed to win. It was just nice for them to knock Manchester United out, but if they had a drawn or lost, it wouldn't have made any difference for Bayern Munich. But the big difference will be in the Bundesliga and putting pressure on Bayer Leverkusen, so they will need to beat Stuttgart, and they will be hopeful that they can beat Stuttgart convincingly, because as we've seen in that game against Eintracht Frankfurt, they're not that convincing at the back, so they need to be convincing up front. I think Tuchel will need to figure out which of his fullbacks are the best ones. He obviously kept the same ones against Man United, but against Frankfurt he changed both fullbacks at half time in it, and it didn't seem to make any difference. So he needs to figure out who his best back four are, because his back four were kind of error prone in that match against Frankfurt. Frankfurt became the first team since 1975 to score 5 against Bayern in the first hour of a football match, and the last team to do that was Eintracht Frankfurt. It surprised me. So yeah, it was one of those kind of weird stats that came up. So this will not be a match where Bayern Munich concede 5 again, and if they do, they're going to score 7. It's kind of that Bayern Munich will be coming out all guns blazing in this one. Stuttgart, they were very impressive against Bayer Leverkusen. Actually, say they equaled the Bundesliga record for the most shots on target in the first half of a game. They had 11 shots on target in the first half of the game against Leverkusen. And they ended up with 2.61 xG to Leverkusen's 1.47. So this is not a team that kind of are to be messed with, and it is a difficult fixture for Bayern Munich to be coming into after that disappointing 5-1. But obviously, like we said, that 1-0 win over Manchester United should give them confidence, and it should show that they can kind of get back to their usual proceedings in the Bundesliga. The Bayern win 1.47, that looks good on its own. Total goals over 3.5 is 1.99 here. But for this one, I'm going for Bayern to win big. Bayern Asian handicap, that should be plus 1.5, I think. 2.1. That's my fault. I emailed in the wrong thing, but yeah, it should be plus 1.5. Yeah.
All right. Tell me, guys, what do you think about this game? If Bayern are gonna win big, if you think that against Stuttgart, I loved Harry Kane's assist, by the way, against Man United. What a class he has. Well, Ronan,
as many assists as Bruno Fernandes at Old Trafford this season. That was the stat that came out.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot say the same for Bruno Fernandes' shot outside the box. Actually, for instance, they didn't raise a glove against Bayern Munich. But, well, Ronan, tell me your safe bet for this match day.
My safe bet this week is Bayer Leverkusen to win 1.53.
Indeed, good odds. And the ACCA?
My ACCA is 3 home wins. Borussia Mönchengladbach win 1.95. Bayer Leverkusen to win 1.53, and Bayern Munich to win at 1.45.
Okay, 3 favorites to win, but the odds are very good for this treble. Thanks, Ronan. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Still one more match day before we go into the winter break. It's getting cold in Germany, so time to stay at home and don't go to the stadiums. Thanks, Ronan. See you next week.